Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I decided to do a spooky recommendation video. This is kind of like last minute for me. I just realized that like Halloween's coming up. It's getting slightly cooler here in Arizona. It's now like 97 degrees. Love you. But yeah, I wanted to talk about some of my favorite spooky reads. I really like horror, and so yeah, I hope you find something in this stack that might go well with your October reading. So first, I will share what I'm drinking today. My local brewery that I love, I haven't featured them in a while, so don't come for me, but they released this new beer called Strawberries and Cream, and maybe it sounds gross to you, it's an IPA, so I was like, wait, hold up. But it's a sour IPA with strawberries, and it is brewed with lactose. So it sounds like there's a lot going on, right? And I tried this yesterday, and I wish I got my initial reaction on camera because this beer is like incredible. Maybe one of my favorites from them. One of the best beers I've ever had, like hands down. It's like everything I want in a beer, and it works. Just like trust me. Oh, oh my god, it is so good. Like I can't even. It's like so it's subtly sweet from the strawberries, but like not sweet, not really sweet. It's more so like a sour tart vibe to it, but it has like the hoppiness of an IPA, and the lactose comes through to kind of help with like balance the flavors. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. Seriously phenomenal, and yeah, props to them for brewing another insane beer. This is like it's so good. It's so good. So yeah, let's get into the recommendations. First, I have Grady Hendrix generally, but I have here my best friend's Exorcism, which I actually have like 30 pages left, I want to say. But I loved his other book, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. What Grady Hendrix does really well is like work with camp, but also making like really terrifying books, and they often have like some gross scenes in them. They're just super fun and kind of scary. They're well written, and you can just tell Grady Hendrix is super passionate about the genre. And so, yeah, I highly recommend Grady Hendrix if you haven't picked him up already. I think he's just like a really great kind of literary horror novelist, and they're just super fun reads. And like, I can't think of a better author to recommend for Halloween. I know Stephen King's always recommended, but he writes like those campy, like fall vibe books that I just love so much. I do say that I think the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires is better than this book. I think I just like vampires, and there's a book club involved, and it's the 90s rather than the 80s. It just worked more for me than this one worked, but this one's super fun too, so highly recommend both. And actually, one of my like October possibilities is Paperbacks from Hell by Grady Hendrix, which I had started last October and only made it like 50 pages in, but I was really enjoying it. I just had been reading some other stuff, and so yeah, this book is like a compilation of all of like the 70s and 80s horror paperback fiction that was out, and like all the weird topics that were like discussed in these books, and just the craziness of them. And so it's super fun to just read like the history of these different genres, subgenres within horror. And it features like really cool art of all of them, and kind of like the history. If you're interested in like horror nonfiction, this is great from the 50 pages that I read, and I think I want to dive back into it and finish it up. Yeah, I don't know, just another recommendation if you're looking for some learning in your horror reading. Next, I have The Saturday Night Ghost Club by Craig Davidson. He's also the author Nick Cutter. He wrote The Troop and The Deep, which I haven't read, but I love this book so much. It's less spooky, more so just kind of like fall Halloween vibes. This book actually made me cry. Which was a surprise to me. Like, I did not expect it. Books never make me cry. And this book follows a young teenager who basically hangs out with his uncle, who's kind of like eccentric, and he deals like in the occult, and just kind of like a weird out there guy. But he's super nice to the main character. I forget his name. Jake. There's some friends that he has, and they like form this group called the Saturday Night Ghost Club. And what ensues, I'll just kind of leave it there. But it gets way more like, I don't know, it gets way more real than I expected it to. There's not really too much like supernatural stuff going on here. You'll learn more as you read it, but I just thought it was so beautiful and heartwarming. And one thing I really liked about this, I should mention, is that it kind of delves into like the difference between childhood and adult fears, and like this, the true spookiness of being an adult versus like the monster that lies under your bed as a kid. And so I just thought it was a really good look at that through a coming of age lens, and so highly recommend it. Loved it so much. I read this one a while ago, but I loved it. It's so good. If you like coming of age stories that are set like in fall, if you like Stranger Things, maybe it's not really like in the same, I don't know, spookiness of that, but like the general vibe of like young teenagers coming of age, exploring spooky stuff. It's just such a beautiful book, and I loved it so much. So highly recommend it. And this cover is like super cool. Okay, next I have Queen Shirley Jackson. I read this one I think like a year or two ago. We Have Always Lived in the Castle. It's a classic gothic story about these sisters that live in this secluded house in this village, I believe. And the sisters have this weird relationship, and their uncle lives in the house with them. And the town all appear to hate them and are kind of like turned off from them. You don't know why. And you learn more about the family and the sisters as you go along. But I just thought it was such a good and interesting, spooky tale. And it's a classic for a reason. I mean, if you haven't read Shirley Jackson, I highly recommend reading this. If you want like a shorter work, I would recommend The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, which is a short story that I loved. Super dark as well. So yeah, really, really enjoyed this one. If you like weird family, mystery stuff, this is a good one for you. And it's also short. And if you like gothic, this is a recommendation. And so on a related note, Shirley Jackson, I really want to read this collection called Dark Tales. I read a few of the stories a couple months ago, I want to say, and put it to the side, but I want to come back to them. I just always like to pick up short story collections sometimes if I don't blow through them and read through, and these are really good as well. So another possibility. Okay, next, I talked about this in a recent video, but I have A Cosmology of Monsters by Shaun Hamill. I really, really love this book. It's kind of more so weird fiction, but it's perfect for spooky season because the family in question here, they run a haunted house, like a walkthrough one. And so I just loved reading about that because as a kid, every year I would go. And so this one follows a family that is being haunted by supernatural forces. And you see the trauma the family goes through and the way the supernatural forces kind of play into the trauma of the family. It's told from the perspective of the youngest child, but it kind of goes through time, like it's multi-generational, I guess. And yeah, it gets super weird by the end, and I just loved it so much. It's such a fun, like a perfect Halloween read in the sense that it's, I don't know, steeped in Halloween throughout the whole book. So yeah, also recommend this one. I do feel like this one's underrated. Stephen King did blurb this one though, which is, and Carmen Maria Machado. I didn't realize that. I don't think I'd read her work when I read this one last year. Oh, and it's also like homage to Lovecraft. So if you like Lovecraft, you might like this one. Not sure because I haven't read Lovecraft, but yeah, on its own, it's a great debut novel. Love it. Shaun Hamill, the author of this book, he's so nice. Like I talked to him after I finished this book, just like raving about it, and he was just so kind. So yeah, he's also awesome. Okay, next I have the obligatory Stephen King recommendations. And I think two that I really, really liked that I've read recently is Pet Sematary, which super spooky. I mean, you probably already know what these books are kind of about if you like spooky books, but if not, first, Pet Sematary is about this family that moves to this small town in Maine, I believe, and behind their new house, there lies this like burial ground where if you bury things, they come back to life, and they're not essentially human, and they're menacing, to put it lightly. And so this novel is a really beautiful and creative look at grief through a horror lens. And I found it really moving and scary as hell and just super disturbing. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I think Stephen King dubs this as like his scariest novel, and I would agree from what I've read so far. Really like it. And also, if you like audiobooks, Michael C. Hall, who played Dexter, he narrates the audiobook and he does an incredible job. His voice is like so well suited for this book and horror, I feel like. And so yeah, if you want an audio Halloween recommendation or spooky season recommendation, definitely do the audiobook for this one. It's so good. The other Stephen King I have is Salem's Lot. It's his second novel, and it's based in vampires. And I think it's good to just go into it knowing it's about vampires and that's it. But it's a really great look at like small towns and the people that inhabit them, and when something comes to the town that wreaks havoc, how that looks. And I just thought it was super, like there's so many creepy scenes in this book that really get to me. Like usually I find that I like my horror steeped more so in reality. Like that gets to me more than, I don't know, like monsters and whatever. But this one is super creepy in times and just a really great autumnal pick as well. So if you want a vampire book, go with this one. Or I would say Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I just tried to say that 5 times and it did not work. Good stuff. Getting into some like thriller-y books, I guess, that I think are really good for spooky season. The first one is Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesare. I just read this one, I think, a month or two ago, and it's a YA slasher. But I would not let the YA title put you off if you don't think that you like YA. The only really YA thing about this book is that it features teenagers, but the slashing that happens in this book is insane. I was not expecting it to be like this I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's basically a slasher. Follows this teenager who moves to a new town with her father. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even want to say too much about it. Just if you like slashers, I would pick this up because it's just super fun and things get crazy. So, had a super fun time with this one. Okay, next, also more of like a psychological thriller, I have I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Iain Reid. Recently adapted to a film on Netflix, which I haven't watched yet and I want to check out. If you've seen it, let me know if you like it. But this one follows a couple who are traveling to the boyfriend's parents' house, and things are weird and off, and that's all I'll say. This one is definitely best going into blind. It's a super just like anxiety inducing, like read. Like when you're reading it, you're just like, what is going on? Why is everything going bad? Like what are these people up to? Like just bad vibes going through it. But it's a really great read, I think. And yeah, I was surprised by the ending. It's just super anxiety inducing, and I feel like this is a good one to read in one sitting if you can, like maybe late at night. Blowing through this one is a good idea. It reads super fast paced, so yeah, I loved it. Next, for a more spooky thriller recommendation, I would recommend Gillian Flynn's Sharp Objects. Also has a really great adaptation on HBO, but I would read this first and then watch it. But this one follows basically like a messed up family, and it's a Southern Gothic novel. It's super messed up and like complex, and I wasn't expecting it going into this. I would love to find more thrillers that are like in this vein. I know one that I really want to read that's recommended is Karen Slaughter's Pretty Girls, which is also supposed to be like pretty dark and messed up for a thriller. And so yeah, love Gillian Flynn. I think this is my favorite from her. I also love Gone Girl, but I read that like 5 years ago. Is that fair to say? I don't know. But yeah, I think she's great, and I can't wait till she drops something new because it's been a long time since Gone Girl dropped. So yeah, this is a great one if you're looking for a thriller. Another thriller that I really liked is Sisters by Daisy Johnson. This one follows two sisters that are moving with their mom to a secluded like cabin style house that's super like gothic and creepy and weird. And as you go, you learn more about the sisters' relationship. It's pretty like complex, and there's like a power dynamic between the two that's really interesting, and the mom is acting weird and you don't know why. So it's just like a really good twisty, more literary thriller, I would say, and I really enjoyed it. It's also quick. Okay, and then my last recommendation, I just read this week, and it's Tiny Nightmares from Catapult Books, who I love. They're a great smaller publisher. And this one is a collection of over 40 very tiny stories. Each of them are under 1,500 words. And so you can read each of them in just like a couple minutes, and you can like see every time there's a pink thing, it's a new story. But they're very short, and they're super fun. Like topics range from like a Uber passenger who's a serial killer. There's vampires in here. There's a zombie apocalypse. Almost anything you can think of is kind of represented in this book. And I just love super tiny short stories like this. I've always have since I was younger. Like the Scary Stories to Tell in Dark series, I love that so much, and this gave me like the same vibes as that, but for like an adult audience. And so if you want just like bite-sized nuggets of horror, if you liked scary stories, this is a great one. This one comes out on October 13th, so definitely keep an eye out for it. Okay, that about does it for my spooky recommendations. I like seriously did not plan this video, and I just like pulled stuff from my shelves. There's probably stuff I'm missing, and I'm gonna be so pissed when I like think through it more. But yeah, I think this is a solid stack in my opinion, and a pretty good range of books, I would say. So yeah, I hope if you pick one of these up, I hope you love it. And until next time, cheers. This beer is so good, y'all. Okay, bye.